Hello, my freshman and sophomore class. This is being my first presentation or video that I've done for you guys. I'll try to do more as we go throughout the course. It's been kind of a learning curve figuring out the new software and everything else, as I'm sure it's been for many of you guys. So I'm just going to do a little bit of how I would teach if I were to have you guys in person here. I'll be using my whiteboard here. I do ask for your forgiveness on the glare. I'll see what I can do to minimize that or change the direction of the laptop. I might just be stuck with it here, guys. Either way, you can feel free to ask any questions throughout, and if any of you log in during this video, just feel free to interact as necessary. Okay. First thing we're going to talk about is this week's main point is characterization. Or in other words, this is how the authors reveal their characters. What do they say about them? How do they feel about them? Now, the thing about your characters in your story, as well as in life you're dealing with somebody who's going through a journey. Now, let's go ahead and think about it this way. You've got your main story arc that we went over last week. Now, I've kind of complicated a little bit there. I've thrown a few more twists, turns, ups and downs. You don't have to do that when you make yours, but it does allow you to understand things from a new perspective. So first off, let's look at the different parts of the plot diagram. First off, we have your exposition right here. Now, your exposition is how things have always been. Now, think of it in terms of the character. This is how things have always been for them. It's the journey that they've been living for a while. I always like to reference The Hobbit. As you can see from my dorky little memorabilia items there. I love The Hobbit. I think it's great. But anyways, we start off the story with Bilbo Baggins. He is kind of a boring character. He's not done much for his first 50, 60 years of life there. He's sitting on his porch there. That's the exposition. The conflict, which is something that didn't get mentioned very well last module, so I do apologize about that. Your conflict is when old Mr. Gandalf arrives and invites him on an adventure. It says, Bilbo Baggins, I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure. Absolutely not. And then, unbeknownst to Bilbo, dwarves and others show up at his house there and kind of manipulate him into taking this journey. Now, along the journey, there's spiders, there's kidnappings, there's an almost death view there when they get into the barrels there and go to Lake Town. There's a lot of things going on. Now, that's our rising action. Now, as you know here from the movie or the book, if you read it, this is just the beginning for Bilbo Baggins. He's not addressed the main conflict there. And remember, the main conflict right here is when he was set out on the journey and they told him, we need to reclaim our mountain, get the dragon. Okay? So all these other things it's fun, it's adventurous, it's awesome. However, it's just rising action. Bilbo confronts the conflict in all of its glory, bitterness, and nastiness in this gigantic dragon called Smaug in the climax. Sorry. Now, he finds out many things about himself, about the dwarves, about what his mission was there, and that's kind of how he gets to where he needs to be there. He has this invisibility ring. He's able to move things along there. Now, think about the climax here, and remember, he confronted the dragon. He got him out of the mountain. He got most aspects of the conflict dealt with there, and as a result, Bard from Lake Town goes and slays the dragon, and a whole bunch of other things there. But there's also this battle of 5 armies that takes place after the climax. There's also this different other scenes there as people decide what to do with the mountain now that it's been taken. 5 armies want it. These are all pieces of your falling action. Things settling into place now that the dominoes have been set forth in action. Now, eventually we get to our resolution here. The battle is won by the good guys. They decide what to do with the mountain. It's all going to be good. And then there's this hint at the very ending. There's more to do with that ring that Bilbo picked up in Gala's cave. And again, remember, this one is kind of like an epilogue, or as we say it in English class, a denouement. French word in English class. Go figure. Anyways, that's the main thing that you need to understand here about characterization. Your characters are on a journey. They can't go back to where they were at the beginning. They will always end up a little bit higher or worse than when they started. So that's the kind of funny thing about adventures is that we don't always end up where we want to be. Now, I'm going to kind of get rid of some of these things here so I can go ahead and write a little bit more. I'll leave a little bit of a hint of what's going on here, but I want to have plenty of room to write. We'll have RA for rising action, EXP for exposition, con for conflict. You get the picture there. F for epilogue. Sounds great. You switch colors pen here. Switch to a beautiful black one. All right. Now, when you're going about with learning more about your characters, we have the round characters. And these are characters with 2 to 5 characteristics or traits. I'm going to call it traits here because I've got more room for it. And traits mean characteristics. It's like no one's logged in yet, but it's okay. Log in when you can there. They have 2 to 5 traits. Heck, I'm not even going to put a limit on the amount of traits. They could have infinite amount of traits there. So I'm going to put 2 plus traits. Flat characters, they have 1 to 2. That's like your grumpy English teacher, okay? There's not much to him. He's just always grumpy, something like that. Or at least that you understand. Dynamic characters change throughout the story. Okay. Now, as you remember here with Bilbo Baggins, he started off kind of this boring fat hobbit. By the end here, he got to Smaug here, and he had a very slim figure. Okay, not like me. Okay, he was very much losing weight. He was becoming a better person. He was trusting more in the dwarves. He was actually anxious for the adventure. Okay, he's a very dynamic character. When he sits down at the end there, you know that he's more pleased to hold a sword, to go out and have an adventure there, than to sit around by the fire or to just eat all day. Okay? Static characters are pretty much unchanging characters here. They don't do much. They don't change throughout the story. For example, if you look at Smaug there, you know from the beginning of the story here, as the dwarves describe him, that he's this thieving, murderous dragon, right? And he's never going to change. And by the time you meet him in the climax, he's still a thieving, murderous dragon. And when he dies and is killed by a bard, he died killing and stealing from the humans there and the dwarves. Nothing changed about him. Smaug is a very static character. Most of the dwarves throughout the story are mostly static, but you can kind of see that they've developed as they kind of get to the end. And they're not 100% the best definition of a static character. Now, how do we go ahead and illustrate the change that has happened in Bilbo Baggins? How do we illustrate the change that's happened in ourselves, in the other characters? We have to characterize them. We have to illustrate that in how we write about them as authors. As readers, you just have to find those hints. So unfortunately, direct and indirect is what I have right here in that glare. Man, I wish I could turn on the light or turn off the light there, but it's a small office here. Anyways, direct characterization, that's kind of like what the author says directly about the character, though, just so you're not left wondering at all. Okay. For example, Bilbo Baggins, he said, J.R.R. Tolkien says that he was content to ignore and be ignored by the world of men and the outside world there. So it's what the author says about the main character or the villain or everything else. Now, indirect characters, or indirect characterization, forgive me, this is what the author doesn't say directly to you. For example, imagine the the dwarf Thorn there. When he walked into Bilbo's life there, he showed up late. Okay? That shows that he's kind of used to being in charge of things, and things start when he shows up. Okay? Think about the grumpy person at school. Now, they don't go around saying, I'm grumpy, I'm grumpy, I'm grumpy. They might go around and slam lockers in your face. They might go ahead and shoulder shove you in the hallway or something. Okay? This is what the author doesn't says through their dialogue, appearance, thoughts, reactions, and actions. So you might say, how's your day going? And they'll say, fine. Okay? You know they're not fine. It's very much revealed in their dialogue in the short way that they said that there's something else going on. Their appearance. Okay? Now, if somebody's dressed kind of dark, grungy, and they've got this hood over the thing, they're saying, leave me alone. It's a very indirect way of characterizing yourself. Your thoughts. Now, the author will sometimes go into the mind of the character, and they'll go ahead and talk about, or they'll share how this character feels uncertain about themselves, or doesn't get along with people, or something to that effect. Those are their thoughts. The reactions. Oh, this is my favorite one. My students in the public school there for a while there, they would go ahead and hear me walk into the classroom there, and I'd say, all right, get out your pens and pencils. We're going to take some notes today. Okay. They sounded like a bunch of goats. It was pretty funny. So the reactions there to my actions were very much revealing that they're a little bit lazy. It's not something they really want to do at that time. Your actions. Okay. Actions often speak louder than words, and so remains the truth with what you're reading. If you see something happen in a book and it's a particular action, they go ahead and show what happened in the character there. Look at Bilbo here when he finally decides to go ahead and go on the adventure. Okay, he wakes up, there's no dwarves there, and he's like, huh, I kind of liked them being here. I kind of liked the idea of going. And then he pulls out the contract that's been left for him. He signs it, and he leaves. This is his first act of bravery. This is so amazing for him. This is such a good job on Bilbo's part. Okay, so that's indirect and direct characterization. Now, the last thing I want to talk about now is your protagonist and your antagonist. Now, your protagonist, you're typically viewing them as the good guy of the story, the good gal of the story, whatever. But pretty much this is the main character of the story. Uh-oh. I didn't label them as a good or bad character. Okay. Now, this is who the narrator is following. So I'm just going to add that right there. Who narrator follows. Now, let's go ahead and imagine The Hobbit again here. Let's go ahead and say that we told the story from the perspective of Smaug. Okay? Smaug would then be the protagonist. Maybe Smaug's just always been about collecting as much gold as possible. Maybe some of that gold used to belong to his ancestors, and the dwarves stole it. Maybe he helped him melt the gold there when the dragon was living there when it was a volcano. Maybe. I don't know. That's pretty far-fetched, isn't it? But anyways, the main character is just who's the narrator following. Okay, think of the movie Despicable Me. You remember Gru? He definitely wasn't a good guy. Now, we've got the next person right here as the antagonist. Now, the antagonist is the character who complicates the story or who stands in the way of the protagonist. Sorry for the silence there. Now, the antagonist there gets to have a little bit of a broader definition. What if the antagonist is just this this thing that's not inherently bad, but just stands in their way. Now, think of The Hobbit again. We've got Smaug as the antagonist. It's very clear. We've got the goblins and the orcs as the antagonists. It's very clear because of their nature there. Now, if you look at something like Romeo and Juliet, who's the antagonist? It's not Lord Montague. It's not Lord Capulet. It's this old feud. It's this society. It's their history. Okay? So this could be fate. This could be society. This could be old ideas. This could be so many things that I don't even have written up here or have space to write. But that's kind of what you're looking at as far as your protagonist and your antagonist. The biggest thing to remember, though, is every single character is on that same journey. From the beginning, where things are the same, to the rising action, to the climax, where the conflict is finally addressed, to the falling action, where things actually might become more exciting than the climax at times, to the resolution and epilogue, where there might be another story that's going to go forward. It's been a pleasure teaching you guys. I hope that you were able to get something from this video. This is the sort of thing that we can cover during tutoring sessions there, and I'll try to go ahead and make available on Canvas or on my YouTube channel. Thanks. You guys got this. Have a good day.